Welcome to the, what's this called? Filmation, a Focus on She-Ra panel. To the left of me, I've got some of the greatest talent that Filmation ever saw, starting with Erica Scheimer.
Nothing like a little bit of nepotism.
Mr. Larry DiTilio. Tom Cito.
Yeah.
And last but not least, Francis Moss.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll start off, obviously this is the She-Ra panel, so I'll start with Larry DiTilio.
Hello.
Are you ready?
I am ready.
He's ready.
I am ready, yes.
Okay, so I'll start off with something interesting, because for years everyone thought Mattel were the sole kind of creators of She-Ra.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not true.
Well, no, they're not. They're not the sole creators of He-Man either.
No.
Excuse me, but yeah, you wrote the stories. Yes, I did most of the work on She-Ra. I was handed She-Ra when Mattel asked us to do the show.
Yeah.
I think we felt we had gone as far as we could go with He-Man. And I think we just wanted to.
After Roby, we had to look for them.
Yeah. We just wanted to go a different direction, and they wanted to go. They wanted the girl toy division to step up, and because I think they found that a lot of women also liked He-Man, partly because of the female warriors in it and the female villains in it. And so they said, well, let's do a show that's for ladies. Now that included lots of hair play. On the figure lines, there were no weapons, there were hair accessories and stuff. They said, girls like hair play. Cut down hair play. My kid just to cut the hair off the board. I said, don't do that. That's a $75 army. But and I developed the show, and my goal in developing the show was to make a show that was similar to He-Man and had ties with He-Man, but was not the same show as He-Man was. So what I did was say, okay, what have we got on He-Man, and let's do exactly the opposite on She-Ra. And the first thing to do there was, Skeletor was out of it. We had new villains. They were originally supposed to be, I think everybody knows this, they were supposed to be, the Horde was going to be the new villains. And they were space-faring, industrial race. That was quite different from the more fantasy-oriented thing. So we were half going in that same kind of like nebulous science fiction fantasy. Is He-Man science fiction or fantasy? Well, a Wind Raider is not exactly fantasy unless it's got a magic engine, but I assume it's got a real engine because it was always being shot down. A magic plane wouldn't be shot down. Wonder Woman's plane was never shot down. The other thing was that, and I mentioned this on the He-Man panel, is that He-Man was not very proactive. He-Man would only go into action when Skeletor, at least in a lot of the first episodes, I called it the Skeletor syndrome. I said, like, look, every story is Skeletor's doing this, so He-Man has to go there and stop it. Right? I said, I don't want that for She-Ra. I want She-Ra to be the proactive character. So to do that, she could not be the authority as He-Man is on Eternia. He's part of the authority and the establishment of Eternia. He's the prince, really. He's the prince to the king. I don't know why nobody knows by the way, he's the Princess He-Man. It's the tan. Like, look, you can't tell I'm Larry. Who is that thing? Can't ever tell Clark Kent is Superman. Well, so I said, well, if we really want to, and then Star Wars was coming out at that time, and I said, well, I can steal the Great Rebellion whole from that, which I did. I stole the Great Rebellion whole from Star Wars because I said, listen, it's working. And then the thing is, when I saw the drawings and the models and stuff for the Horde, I said, well, they're very industrial. I said, so now I've got my theme for the show, which is nature and magic versus technology and industry. Polluted skies like we have here, or rolling hills in Italy where there's no smog. I was going to rolling hills in Italy where there was no smog, and that's what She-Ra represented to me. And then there was, of course, the fact that she couldn't use the sword as a sword. It could become hair play, as a hair play thing. She could probably use it to poke somebody in the eye, but we had her, we said, wouldn't it be great if, the sword could be anything? And she'd just say, sword to cocktail glass. Whatever you wanted to make it, And it meant in writing the shows you had to be a little more clever because you couldn't just whack away with the sword like He-Man did. You'd have to turn it into something. That was the whole thing. Also, animal empathy was a big part of that show. Again, female animals empathy. It's all the healing powers that she had, all that. She was a healer and she wasn't a killer. She wasn't really want to kill anything. That's why we had a lot of robots for her to destroy. Because you have to have some action as well, And Hordak and his crew were like, they were kind of a step above Skeletor because they were heavy firepower. And that was really a hard, piteous place, the Horde's mucky swamp city there. And that started the whole thing. I'll make the longer story short, and later I'll tell you something about a She-Ra movie I was approached about, and I'll tell you a sad story about that. Right now, that was what I did. Once I had my theme, I was off and running. Then we could use the other female characters that were in the show. Okay, they had silly names. Castaspella was the worst. I love the magician, so I was going to use Castaspella, and it's also very, very hard for actors to say Castaspella because it's got syllables in it, and you're always making mistakes on that. So we usually just called it Casta, and that was kind of a nice name. So Castaspella became her. Frosta was good. Glimmer, they stayed. Queen Angela. The whole gang, and then Swifty, who was the boy's voiced by Lou Scheimer, father of Eric Scheimer.
I taught him everything he knows.
And he was an integral part of the show, like Cringer was for He-Man, Swiftwind was for Swiftwind was actually much better. I'd rather have a flying horse than a big cat to ride, because a big cat's going to eat you at some point. If you get out in the wilderness with Battle Cat, you're in trouble.
Let's jump in, but I remember like with Battle Cat, we were talking before about, he would speak every once in a while. They'd give him some lines, and Lou would do the voice. And I remember in the storyboard department, we were constantly trying to give Battle Cats more lines because like the tag, because we wanted to screw up Lou's voice because it's a lot of work. Well, kids, remember to leave the windows open in your car for your cat when you go in the store.
I was writing Castaspella with an Italian accent until someone told me, no, Castaspella.
Castaspella, come fa?
It's much better in Bright Moon than it is in Grayskull.
So that was the through the line on the show. And the other thing, I wanted to build a whole world, and I did. I built Etheria, and I wanted to be very different from Eternia, which it was. And of course, we did have crossovers. Everybody was going there at one time. It was like a tourist spot. It's horrible stuff. But that's how we started it. And I'll tell you more as you go along.
Yeah, sure. I was going to go to Erica next.
Sure.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Were you responsible for casting on She-Ra?
Yes, I was. I was very much. I literally started Filmation the week that He-Man aired, and that was such a big success that Dad's like, okay, you know what? We got to bring the sister. We got to give the girls something, and you gay boys, we've got to give them something. It's really important. And Dad's like, okay, you take care of the auditions. You take care of that. And I actually, y'all probably remember Linda Gary from
Yes.
Really, really fantastic lady. But you bring in new blood and they say, you know what? Gotta have somebody different.
Yeah.
And I really almost came to fisticuffs with my father because he wanted Linda Gary, and Linda Gary, I think the world of her, but She-Ra needed to be something different. and I found Melindy Britt, and I fought like hell for her, and it was the best thing I did.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
and I have to tell you, she just brought something to the role that was really special, and I'm just so proud of that. And I'm so psyched that she came here today. I just spent a few minutes with her, and she's blown away by you all. So she's a very shy, quiet person, and this is just blowing her away. So it's just really wonderful. You guys are the best fans ever, and you just made Shira really happy.
Yay!
Go over to Francis Moss at the end now. I'm not leaving you out, Tom.
No, that's okay.
How did you become involved in Shira? Like, when did you first hear about it?
That was, I was just telling Larry about this story yesterday. Shira was actually my first animation writing job. I had started writing some live action, Buck Rogers, and then the writer's strike hit, and writers with long years of credits were out beating the bushes when the strike was over, so me with my little measly 2 credits, it's very hard to find work. Larry was on a Writers Guild panel, I think it was about alternative forms of writing or something like that, and after the and Larry was talking about animation, so after the panel was over, one of them spoke to him about it. He said, well, I'm working at this company called Filmation out in Reseda, come on over, and I did, and the rest, as they say, is history, at least mine. So I was very lucky because I had no idea about this whole industrial versus natural underpinnings of the show, but the first couple of shows I pitched were all about, one was about Agent Orange, and the other one was about, like South American miners or West Virginia miners. So it fit right into the zeitgeist of Filmation and Shira at that time, so I was very lucky, and I got on staff.
Oh, cool. Okay, I'll go. Tom Cito now. Are you ready?
Yeah, so good. Yeah, I mean, I was storyboarding a lot on the show, and I also got some of my first direction on that program. And I started with The Red Knight. I think it's the first one I directed. I did about 6 or 7 of them. And it was fun and everything. I was still comparatively young compared to, the fun part about Filmation is that there were so many. It was such a spread of people. There were so many different, so much different background, and so we had like a lot of young animators and a lot of young artists, and then we had like old guys from like Fleischers and from Warner Brothers and Disney's, and remember like Jack Ozark was like this wonderful Jack. What was he was an animator on Gulliver's Travels and Popeye and stuff, and he would come up to you and go, "Yeah, kid, you doing okay?" It's like, okay. And then one thing I remember was that we used to have. Shira did a lot of like fighting and running and jumping and stuff. And the head of our cleanup department, meaning the assistant animators are the people who follow the animators and make all the drawings all crisp and clean and make sure she has the same locks of hair and stuff and things don't jiggle. And anyway,
they still jiggle.
I mean, the things that
one of my big disappointments.
That's one thing. Yeah. Things that are not supposed to jiggle. So anyway, but
budget for jiggling.
Yeah. But the fun part with Dory was that I was the head the co-head of the department, Dory Herrick. She teaches now at Woodbury University, and she was very she was very women's rights and very I don't want to say like ultra feminist, whatever. But one of the things that she said that her goal in life was that no matter how Shira ran or jumped, that damn little skirt never flipped out. She'd like jump off buildings and she'd wrestle octopi and whatever, and that skirt never went up in any kind of immodest way. There was this one animator. There was this one animator that was a freelance guy from New York, and he had like he had like 9 kids or something like that, and they were doing this one. I think it was like House of Spirit, the Cave of Spirits or something, and it's like she was fighting these like ghost images that she can't hit, whatever, and the ghost, the models kind of look like Skeletor's head with a little tail. So it looked like Skelisperm or something. It was very strange looking and everything. Yeah, but anyway, David
told me that.
Yeah, it was very strange. But the thing is that so these things are all swirling around her, and she's punching and everything. And then the animator made one of them turn and just burrow itself in her skirt. And it was just like, and Dory threw a fit and said, no. I said, oh, it looks funny to me. I said, no. That's out. Okay, yeah, you're right. We don't have any trouble. So, rock young people's minds. So, yeah, but there was a bunch of stuff like that was fun, and there was like, usually you try to cultivate a lot of the younger animators who were like hot to trot and wanted to do like more full animation. Like on the He-Man show when I was animating on it, they would give me hard scenes to do, like He-Man punching his way through a wall and smashing.
Well, you animated the brilliant Death of Evil Seed.
Oh yeah, Evil Seed.
Yeah.
I did all the Evil Seed stuff. Yeah, that was me. So I wanted to do all that kind of stuff. So then when I was a director, I kind of thought about the folks who wanted to do more full animation, and then the guys who were like had sort of like past their prime and just wanted to kind of like get their footage for their check. You give them simpler scenes. And I remember there was an old Disney animator named Dick Hoffman, who's passed away now, and but Dick would stand over me, and he knew what I was doing because I was giving him very easy footage. And he goes, "Come on, Tom, give me some good stuff. I was animating when you were in a glint in your old man's eye." I said, "Okay." And he goes, "Did you ever see a Disney movie, Make Mine Music?" And I go, "Yeah." And he says, "Remember the Willie the Whale sequence?" I go, "Yeah, it's a beautiful sequence." I cried at the end. He says, "Well, when the professor is shooting the harpoon at Willie, I animated the cable." That's a really good cable. It's just like, okay. But then Ed Friedman was the older director. Eddie was a sweet. Eddie lived to like, God bless him, lived to like 94.
And he was in the LA Olympics in 1984.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
He used to call himself a Jewish Olympian. He used to say it like that.
Oxymoron, if I ever heard one.
But he was so funny because I was, when you're timing out animation, you have these exposure sheets, which is the log of how everything's going to be photographed, and the more notes you put on it, the more instructions you give to the animators. And older animators like Chuck Jones would put a lot of notes on there for the animators. So I'm like going through all these scenes and doing all this ferocious stuff, and Eddie would stand in my doorway, and here's a man with like 55 years experience, and he would look and go, "Directing, that's easy. Every scene's 3 feet." Which means like 2 seconds. It's like, and the weird thing is that Eddie's shows didn't look any different. They didn't look better or worse. They worked just as fine as all of us killing ourselves on all this stuff. And but he just had this like sort of 55 years of wisdom, that he would give to like older director and baby director, So he was a sweetie.
I just want to go back to you, Tom. Just one thing I always find interesting is like the latter half of season 2 of He-Man and most of She-Ra, the storyboard department kind of exploded into writers and directors like yourself, and I just wonder kind of what kind of prompted that,
I don't know. I just the way the crew was assembled. We got a lot of very good people. There was a lot of strong people that came onto the storyboard crew. And like for me, like I've been an animator, and this was my they gave me a chance on storyboard because I had storyboarded before. And Bob Arkwright was the head of the unit and everything, and Bob was a great guy. And then we wound up with a number of good people. Barry Caldwell, who later was excellent, for Alvin and the Chipmunks, and it was just a number of like really, really strong people. And and the scripts were fun. They were great fun to do. And, she mentioned, does Trzcinski work on?
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah, the guy created Babylon 5, and
Well, one of the things though that was different when Dad sold He-Man, it was the first time that he was able to employ the studio year-round, and that was always my dad's goal. And once that happened, and then we got She-Ra on top of that, and we had all these He-Mans too. It's like, man, we got a lot of work. We gotta get more people. We gotta, get these young people into other things. So that really pushed the envelope to really open up all these other areas. And Filmation, was really important to my dad to make sure that there was always training going on and to give people a chance, give kids a chance to move along and stuff. So that's what really changed the whole foundation of everything, year-round employment.
Yeah. I mean, before that, with the networks, there used to be a thing called the season, which was basically the networks would approve TV shows like around March or something, and you'd all be hired, and then you'd work till about November, and then they would just tell you to get lost. And then a couple of months would go by, and then the new season would begin. But with syndication, instead of 13 episodes for a TV season, you had 65 episodes. And
TV seasons were longer than live action. It was longer than episodes.
Well, yeah.
Longer than 13 episodes.
Yeah.
They used to do 26.
Oh, yeah,
episodes.
Back then.
26.
In those days,
Yeah, that's right.
In the 80s, there was a lot of
Oh, we should mention Lookie also.
Oh,
Where's Lookie?
Yes, we do. We love Lookie.
Okay, that we does not include me.
Most of us with
I really
taste.
hate it. I have taste.
Yeah. Well, I remember Arthur pushed that, because I think we were like about 5 shows in when Arthur said, we got to put Lookie, we got to get Lookie in every show.
Well, they wanted the moral message again.
Yeah.
Which was okay with me if the moral message followed the story. That on the other hand, I think if you shouldn't be sending a message, you're trying to entertain, but you can send a good message. But it does not. If you are sending a message, it should be hidden in the story, and then they'll get it. They won't get it if you just do a speech about the moral issue.
Well, you're kind of wrong about that, because there's a lot of fans.
No, I'm not wrong.
Well, I guess we have a disagreement, because I've certainly spoken with a lot of fans who that really made a big difference to.
Well, most of my moral messages were changed. That's why. Because and when I wrote Troll's Dream, I specifically wanted to write a moral message about racism, because the show was about racism. The moral message on Troll's Dream was, kids, eat your vegetables. Literally. A lot of I wanted real social activism. Now, I was just being the loose cannon that I was.
No, hey, my dad was all for social
I
activism.
did hate Lookie with a passion. I cut his head off and put it on a pipe. Masters of the Universe movies, hopefully.
There you go.
Because I liked when people from He-Man did their moral messages. They were kind of nice. But this character that really wasn't a part of the show, and he was also one little squeaky kitty character. And I hated those kind of characters. I really did. I wrote a lot of Orko episodes, but Orko was the kid character. Didn't like him. And Lookie I hated even more. I said, Lookie, we got to give him a show at one point. Really to have him be in a show, so he kind of justified why is this little rat sticking around. What the hell was Lookie? What was Lookie?
I never figured him out either.
Was he some kind of hybrid mutant squirrel?
No one knew,
Not before the Ninja Turtles.
How many of you guys like Lookie? Did you guys like Lookie?
See, Larry.
Yes, but I also see a lot of hands not. See, now they're afraid because it's a moral message. No, I'm just against putting a moral message at the end of it when you don't need it. You should build it into the story if it works. But at least if you're doing a story with a serious message, you may want to reinforce it for a kid at the end.
Absolutely.
But you don't want to put eat your vegetables when I'm talking about, being tolerant of people that are different from you.
Yeah, we used to have one of the things too was that we had a child psychologist on staff.
Oh, Gordon Berry.
Yeah, Dr. Berry and stuff.
Yeah. And then was a stalwart of the Cosby Show as well.
Yeah, that was it.
Fat
Yeah.
Albert.
But for He-Man, it was Don Roberts, because Gordon Berry couldn't. He was exclusive to CBS.
Oh, okay.
So Don Roberts came from Singapore.
Yeah, because I just remember I would do boards.
Oh, right. Did Don Roberts do Sheila as well?
Yes,
yeah,
he did.
That's right.
Yeah.
Don Roberts was pretty good though as well.
Yeah.
Because I remember I was doing one board once where He-Man was being attacked by a large lump of broccoli or I don't know, or some creature.
One of those vegetables.
Yeah, one of those vegetables. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Just got mixed up.
So I had him pull a tree out of the ground and beat the monster with it. And then I got a note from Dr. Rapp saying, He-Man cannot kill a tree. Okay, it was on the ground, it was a log, and he's recycling. Eat things with.
I was going to talk about The Secret of the Sword as well, because that was your 5 first episodes that were edited into...
Right, yeah, they laid that little bomb on me. And they said, you know, we want to... They did not tell me that they were going to make a movie out of it.
No.
They just said they wanted a 5-parter to open the show. And they said, can you do it? I said, yes, of course I can do it. I'd love to do it. I've started as a movie writer. I wanted to write a movie. But I was writing a television show, and that's why I was a little upset when it became a movie, because it really wasn't a movie. It was a television show. We got all the scenes out of it. If I had known it was going to be a movie, I would have done it to film. And the other thing is, right in the middle, you'll see that the story stops, and I gave Bob Forward, that was Bob Forward's first writing job. They thought I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. They did not know me. Really.
Didn't have faith.
I would have stayed up all night. I would have done the whole thing. I wanted to do the whole thing, but Bob got a chance at it, and Bob turned into a very good animation writer for Filmation, and later on with me on Beast Wars. Very good writer. Also was a very good storyboard artist. Terrific guy that loves to blow things up when he loves to write. Stay away from him. You see him blow the whole house.
Right. I just remember, like, Bob one time was pitching an idea that, you know, he just wanted to do as an intellectual exercise. He says he probably want to make it into a show, but he wanted to call it The Day Nothing Happened. And it's like Skeletor's on vacation, and, like, you know, King Rando is working on the budget, you know, and Orko's reading a comic book. Man-at-Arms is working on the Wind Raider, you know, it's like draining a crankcase or something. Adam's asleep under a tree, and it's just like, and a half hour goes by, nothing happens.
Little known fact is that Seinfeld made a whole series out of it.
Yes.
Yes.
Eric, I was going to say, do you want to talk about the Secret of the Sword theme song?
Yes. That's okay. We agree to disagree. Well, that was very exciting, and it was a real challenge because, you know, brother and sister, you want to, you know, write a song that is universal but also specific. It was very exciting for me, though, to get that opportunity, and I just really felt that it was important that we really bring in, you know, the power of love and the honor of that, and bring this brother and sister together. It was a lot of fun to record and sing and work in Haim Saban's studio way back when Haim was a little nothing.
Yes.
We were all better off. Thank you. My dad may say fuck Michelle, but I say no. Really exciting, and I even, through the help of the sales department, we got like $30,000 from France to do a music video of it, and that's how we got to put together. I don't know if any of you have seen that. It's sort of out there or whatever, and that was very exciting. I got to work together with Brett Heisey on that, and the two of us sort of, through stock material, you know, we had to do everything, you know, on a really tight budget. And we made it all work out. So it was very exciting. And I've got to tell you, I mean, I've gotten notes from people who've gotten married to that song. It just absolutely, it blows me away. And it just, I can't tell you, it just brings tears to my eyes. So I'm so glad that it captured what you wanted to hear.
The other thing I remember about The Secret of the Sword is that I was sitting right next to Lou at the premiere, and the credit came on, and I turned to Lou and said, "Lou, you spelled my name wrong."
Larry Datillo.
They had left a letter out of it. Left the I out of it at the end. And he said, "Oh, no, don't do that. I did that." I said, "You did that." Yeah. I said, "Look." He said, "Oh." And he apologized, you know. But I had never, again, the 5-parter is the opening. That's really the Secret of the Sword. I would say without the secret weapon in the middle.
Yeah.
You know, if I could have took out Bob's story and just did the 4 things, that would have been a movie. And then I wouldn't have had to cut the middle, and I could have put the good scenes that I had that I couldn't put.
I was going to say, going on from the movie, it's like the first 5 parts, like the Horde become more comical villains over the course of, like, I don't know, the remaining.
The Horde was pretty comical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we always had a I mean,
With
really, we didn't. Yeah, we did. We always had comment, Mantenna, and being dropped down the trapdoor. I should tell you, I love that joke. I did that 1,000 times, which I did. Imp was great. George DiCenzo was very good.
He was wonderful.
But he did have. He wasn't actually as comic opera-y as Skeletor was, but he was kind of comic opera as well. You know, that was the Filmation style, and it was okay.
It was a way to take the edge off of this sort of violent, aggressive aspect, and that was very important.
Now, my regret is that I had to leave Shearer after the.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
I didn't have to leave Shearer, but I got a better job. You know, George Straczynski was left to go to Deke, and he said, you know, why don't you go as well? He says, you know, maybe they'd be glad to hire you. They'll get paid 3 times as much, you know. But he wasn't there as long as I was. I was there about 40 years, you know, and Filmation was kind of like working for your family.
I was going to ask, like, what was it like working at other companies?
Well, except that Arthur was a little, he didn't want the writers fooling around with the ink and painters and the story, but he felt that we were colluding if we did that. He had us chained to desks in the thing, especially Roby. Chained Roby.
Under my desk.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's a true story. One day Luke came in and found Roby sleeping under his desk. No, Arthur did. He said, suppose Luke goes by. Your ass is ready. But he had finished his quota. Arthur established a quota on his story, He-Man. He said, okay, we have to know how many pages you can write a day. So we didn't really like that. So we looked at each other and I said 5. I know I could write 5, you know. So Roby, who is the fastest typer in the world, it's like he has 4 arms, like he's fart, and it sounds like machine gun fart. He finished 5 pages in something like 30 seconds. And then there would be quiet from the rest of the day. From that. All of a sudden, he would be either sleeping or he'd walk around the studio and he'd be you know, so they said, oh, you can't talk to the ink and painters, you can't talk to the storyboard. Well, we did on the side. We colluded at lunchtime, we colluded all the time. We were colluding. Trying to get things back into the storyboard that had been taken out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we used to do that. Yeah. Don Manuel was a particular friend of mine with beautiful storyboards, like comic books.
Yeah, they were gorgeous.
Oh, they were gorgeous. And Swanigan with stick figures.
Board artist Lamb, Derek?
Rob,
He and I actually colluded on a story.
Yeah.
We met after hours and
We were always colluding.
he actually turned up writing some couple scripts, as I recall.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, he said to say hi, by the way. He's in Kentucky right now. So Elsie would be here. So.
Oh, Don?
No, Rob Lamb.
Oh, Rob. Oh yeah, Rob. Yeah, Rob was in touch with him, but I haven't seen that in a long time.
After throwing this little,
Looking for him.
after throwing this little funny story, and then it was, because we had a big crew, we had like a large ink and paint staff, because usually like on an animation crew, traditional animation crew, about half the staff is like ink and paint because it's such labor intensive to color in all the characters and all. So we had a big staff, and traditionally a lot of ink and paint people were women, and everything has been sort of gone back to the silent era. There's more mixture now and everything, but at the time it was mostly. There was a little like custom that used to happen in a lot of offices in that time. That when it was somebody's birthday or something, like the people would pool their money and they'd hire a stripper. So somebody would show up or something, and they'd always come in an outfit, like they would come in and dressed as an inspector or as a fireman or something like that. So the ink and paint girls were always like getting strippers with one another. So anyway, one guy, and I think this is still at the Lindley, at the Sherman Way building, but like one time this guy shows up, and he kind of looked like the guy from the Brawny Towels, sort of like a buff guy in a work shirt with a belt with a lot of stuff on it and everything, a lot of tools and everything. And he's walking around the ink and paint department, and 2 or 3 of the ladies started to follow him. Said, why are you here? What are you doing? He says, I'm here to inspect the fire extinguishers. And they're like, come on, that's not a joke. Like, why are you really here? Like, who are you here for? No, I'm here to inspect the fire extinguisher. He really was. He really was a fire extinguisher. And he had this, like, 8 ladies following him. Come on, get those pants off. That's not a job. This poor guy was like traumatized.
I can see why.
Larry, I was going to say, do you want to talk about the She-Ra anecdote, the movie?
Yes, I should.
Yeah.
Because this was happened, I don't know, a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago. Some guy called me up and said, I think his name was Ed Gold, something like that. He said he wanted to do a She-Ra movie. And that he said, we wanted Cameron Diaz to play She-Ra. Which I thought about, and I said, no, I think about that for a minute. She's kind of got the look for that. She's athletic, and she's cute, and she maybe, and also she's a little older now, and because She-Ra was a woman, she was not a teenager. She was never a Prince Adam. She was a woman. That's what I liked about her. She was a full-grown woman. She was no teenage angst. She could do all the woman things. That's why we could do love stories with She-Ra. And Adora even had a boyfriend. Adora's boyfriend was the Seahawk. He was She-Ra in the Seahawk. Adora and somebody else. I was right the first time. Right?
I'm trying to remember now.
Yeah, they went back and
Yes,
forth. Thing. Anyway, that's not anything about this story. Now here was the deal that he had. Now first of all, I said, do you have the rights to this? No, he didn't have the rights, but they would get them. They said yes, they'd get them. If I wrote them an outline for the She-Ra movie, and I'm saying basically, how much are you paying for that? Well, no, we can't pay you for that. You'll write an outline for us, and tell us how would you do it? I said, well, I'm not going to tell you how I would do it. I said I would write up how I would do it, but I am a professional writer, and I don't work for no money. That's what that is. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll go home and I'll think about it. And I went and I thought about it. I thought, at the time I didn't have a job and I was looking for something to do. And of course it was appealing to me to do a live action movie since I had started as a film writer. I thought about it and I put some notes down on it, and then I said, what am I doing? I can't even give them those notes. I said, because this guy is this is not a deal. Right, this is nothing. Like we're going to do this, and you can do it. I said, if you give me a contract that puts me on the picture as a producer, then you can pay me as a producer to write the outline. I said, because I will demand to be the producer anyway, and to write the script. He said, well, we can't assure you that. I said, good. When you have money and you're serious about this, come back and call me. He hasn't called me since. But I did write up a 2-thing about how I would do a new She-Ra. So if you want to hear that.
Yes, please.
That'd be cool.
It was, and it basically, this kind of tells you what my overall, it was reinvent She-Ra for the 2000s. Start all over with a new character. There's 2 basic options, I said. Give her new origin, new look, new mission. I said that was not my preferred method. First of all, there were all these practical considerations. Hordak would probably not be the villain of such a movie because they're not in the Mattel's toy line anymore, unless they wanted to come back to that toy line. So they would have to be out of it. So I liked the second man to stick to the old main cast, which is basically She-Ra and Adora for unmissions. The horse stays. By all means, the horse is an essential part of the story. The flying horse, love the Pegasus and Clash of Titans. You love that, right? Yeah. And with Blue's voice, great. I really love that horse, man. And I was planning on doing a story where basically, since you hadn't seen She-Ra for many years, about 20 years at that point, the Great Rebellion had not failed. They kicked the Horde's ass, and they just sent them home. They sent them home, which they would have done eventually. Had I continued on She-Ra, I think they would have knocked the Horde off. I said that's the way to do it, but they didn't get Shadow Weaver. Shadow Weaver was from Etheria, right? So it's Shadow Weaver leading the bad villain girls, the band of the bad villain girls, and She-Ra leading the original Glimmer Castaspella. All those people. That was big. Oh, and I was going to add Octavia to the bad girls because she was one of my favorite bad girls, the octopus lady. Okay, I stole it from Disney, but ours was more awful than the one in the Disney picture.
Well, they took the Horde King from Skeletor. You know, I remember when I saw Black Cauldron, and you finally see the Horned King, and you go, looks like Skeletor. Skeletor has more character.
The other thing, I'm not going to read this whole thing to you because I don't really have the time for it. The tone was, I was again thinking, I always tried to do science fiction stories. In fact, I pitched 3 of them to Arthur. He turned them all down. The only one I ever did was Happy Birthday Roboto, and that was Roboto's only appearance on He-Man. And I did the cliche birthday story. You deserved better than that. I like that character.
You guys all know that Arthur Nadell was the head of writing. So he directed Elvis Presley's last movie.
Yes, right.
And Rifleman.
Yeah, there were 2 kinds of shows on the Rifle. Terrifically violent shows that were all written by Sam Peckinpah, and Little House on the Prairie type shows, which were all written by Arthur Nadell. That's why our show wasn't written by Sam Peckinpah.
My first job in animation, I thought all jobs were supposed to be like that, because working for Arthur was really a treat. And I have a story, an Arthur story, that Larry went on vacation, and I think he sent back a postcard. And Arthur took the postcard, put it up on the bulletin board, and said, "Nice postcard, Larry. I only have a few changes."
So Arthur.
That was Arthur.
Kind of dry wit, you know, and never overhand, but
And he looked like Groucho Marx.
yeah, he did.
Yeah.
The only other thing I asked about the movies that did not make it on TV.
Yeah.
I didn't want to young down the cast. It's hard enough for old actors to get jobs now anyway. So really it is. So that's my share of movie story. I hope someday that maybe this guy will never come back to me because he was totally a scam artist. There are a dime a dozen in this town, and you got to watch out for for new writers. Protect your material.
Oh, yeah.
Register with the Writers Guild. That's a good way to do it. You can register animation scripts though. It's not under their jurisdiction.
You're out of time or not?
No, I guess.
With She-Ra having a bigger budget than we had on He-Man.
We did have a bigger budget on She-Ra. And the other thing is we had tons of stock footage from He-Man, and we did lots of crossovers with He-Man. Now, of course, the worst thing about She-Ra when we started was we had done 130 episodes, and no one ever said He-Man had a sister. Never. It was like, what is she, like the ugly sister? Room over there, the back of the house. And then I said, well, stupid, magic. See, this is the great thing that was about doing She-Ra, magic. You have magic. Magic wasn't on the good guy's side so much in He-Man. But all of She-Ra's crowd was magical. They were women. That was their power. They were magic.
We are ladies.
Right. And then turning the sword into things. That was a. But I loved the episodes I wrote on She-Ra because I felt it was my show. I did really do most of the work on it, and I was very, very proprietary about it. And I really liked writing it. And I think I could have done the second season and made it even better. But economics, you had to move on. And by the way, Lou, he said if I could match the money they pay you, I'd pay it to you, but I can't. And I said, I know it, Lou, and I said I really hate leaving. But I got to move on and up. It probably was a mistake in some part because I probably would have come in a producer position at Filmation had I stayed. On the other hand, then Filmation got bought, so maybe it was
Right.
meant
No,
to
no,
be.
you lucked out, yeah.
Yeah. Went over to Deke, where I hated it. Deke was horrible. Deke was horrible. Jason the Wheel Warriors. Stupid premise. Monster trucks that grow from plants.
Well, no conventions for now.
Straczynski and I just looked at each other and said, trucks that grow out of plants. Okay, we'll get back to you on that. However, we did take that job because we could kill everything in sight. Because they needed the scripts. We had to write a script a week on Jason the Wheel Warriors. We kind of had to do that on She-Ra too, but we had a little time because we
Rewrites.
had a lot of other writers writing the show. Only Straczynski and I were writing Jason and Little Warriors. And it had to go on the air like in a month or something. And he wrote 12. No, he wrote 12, and I wrote 11. Yeah. So between us, we did that one a week. So they couldn't make notes. You know, they had no time to make notes. We had to put it immediately in production. So we said, "Oh man, we're gonna." You know, one time I killed every member of the cast and all the toys. Dream World. That was my. It was all just a dream at the end. Joe had a character commit suicide by smashing his plane into the planet, and they couldn't say anything. You know? The king was once said, "You have to take the bridge off the ship when you land because the bridge comes off the ship." I said, "You don't land your ship in hostile territory and take the bridge off. You know? Well, suppose you have to take off again. You know? You have to, and the thing would come down like dun, 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 you know, and then it would scoot across the like a little truck, and then you could put it back in and go boom, boom. I said, "You'll never get off the planet. Everybody would be dead. You're not doing it." And you could get away with it. You know, you could yell at them and say, "You want the show to go on the air?" And so, "Well, yeah, we do." So then she'd be quiet. And it actually turned into a pretty good season. I shouldn't be posting Jason and Little Warriors, but it was a very good animation company from Japan that was new though, and they wanted to make their bones. And for limited animation, it had really great animation, but it had like the stupid premise. It just could not monster minds. Oh, please. But the animation was good. We did like that, and we were able to tell some tougher stories there. But She-Ra was my baby. Always will be. And Melindy was a large part of that because she could do both. They sounded different, Adora and She-Ra, and then she was very regal as She-Ra. She was very much LA, but she'd kick your butt. That's why I wrote Huntara, so she'd have a good butt to kick.
Yeah.
And also to get a little diversity into the cast.
I was going to ask Erica, what were the voice sessions like and everything with all the cast?
It was a joy to work with everybody. Everybody sort of did their homework, including me.
Yes, because that's what you started voicing.
Yes,
characters.
exactly.
Angela, Froster, Imp.
Yeah, it was like Loki. It's sorry,
Or
we won't say
Fiona.
that. We won't mention that one again. And it was all the ancillary characters. Whenever there was a guest character, it's like, oh well, all the actors are done, so me and Dad to the rescue. and so that's what we did. It was great working with the cast, and it was really important to let them sort of have the free reign when it was when they were really getting into things. And it was great because we were recorded as an ensemble. So you really got the sense of the whole show sort of playing out in real time. And that was a pleasure. I missed that very much.
And right at Filmation again, everything was recorded there.
Yes, everything, soup to nuts. Everything was all done there. It was really an amazing place.
Yeah, the thing about doing it as an ensemble is that, in a lot of modern movies, they work with a lot of celebrities and all. And the problem is it's almost impossible to get celebrity schedules to all kind of click, so to get them all together. So like most animated movies, they record like one guy one month and another one another week, and then and then they like digitally stick it all together, but to get the chance to have an ensemble, just to have them all at the mics at the same time, and they can improv and riff off one another. That's just the joy of it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun for them too. They had a blast. It was family-like for them. The whole thing was really a very homegrown kind of thing, even though it got pretty big, but everybody stayed really small.
Okay.
Excuse me, but yeah, you wrote the stories. Yes, I did most of the work on She-Ra. I was handed She-Ra when Mattel asked us to do the show.
Yeah.
I think we felt we had gone as far as we could go with He-Man. And I think we just wanted to.
After Roby, we had to look for them.
Yeah. We just wanted to go a different direction, and they wanted to go. They wanted the girl toy division to step up, and because I think they found that a lot of women also liked He-Man, partly because of the female warriors in it and the female villains in it. And so they said, well, let's do a show that's for ladies. Now that included lots of hair play. On the figure lines, there were no weapons, there were hair accessories and stuff. Because they said, girls like hair play. Cut down hair play. I came just to cut the hair off the bar. I said, don't do that. That's a $75 rubber. But and I developed the show, and my goal in developing the show was to make a show that was similar to He-Man and had ties with He-Man, but was not the same show as He-Man was. So what I did was say, okay, what have we got on He-Man, and let's do exactly the opposite on She-Ra. And the first thing to do there was, Skeletor was out of it. We had new villains. They were originally supposed to be, I think everybody knows this, they were supposed to be, the Horde was going to be the new villains. And they were space-faring, industrial race. That was quite different from the more fantasy-oriented thing. So we were half going in that same kind of like nebulous science fiction fantasy as He-Man science fiction and fantasy. Well, a Wind Raider is not exactly fantasy unless it's got a magic engine, but I assume it's got a real engine because it was always being shot down. A magic plane wouldn't be shot down. Wonder Woman's plane was never shot down. The other thing was that, and I mentioned this on the He-Man panel, is that He-Man was not very proactive. He-Man would only go into action when Skeletor, at least in a lot of the first episodes, I called it the Skeletor syndrome. I said, like, look, every story is Skeletor's doing this, so He-Man has to go there and stop it. Right? I said, I don't want that for She-Ra. I want She-Ra to be the proactive character. So to do that, she could not be the authority as He-Man is on Eternia. He's part of the authority and the establishment of Eternia. He's the prince, really. He's the prince to the king. I don't know why nobody knows by the way he's the Princess He-Man. It's the tan. Like, look, you can't tell I'm married. Who is that thing? Can I ever tell Clark Kent is Superman? Well, so I said, well, if we really want to, and then Star Wars was coming out at that time, and I said, well, I can steal the Great Rebellion whole from that, so, which I did. I stole the Great Rebellion whole from Star Wars because I said, listen, it's working. And then the thing is, when I saw the drawings and the models and stuff for the Horde, I said, well, they're very industrial. I said, so now I've got my theme for the show, which is nature and magic versus technology and industry. Polluted skies like we have here, or rolling hills in Italy where there's no smog. I was going to rolling hills in Italy where there was no smog, and that's what She-Ra represented to me. And then there was, of course, the fact that she couldn't use the sword as a sword. It could become hair play, as a hair play thing. She could probably use it to poke somebody in the eye, but we had her, we said, wouldn't it be great if, the sword could be anything? And she'd just say, sword to cocktail glass. Whatever you wanted to make it, And it meant in writing the shows you had to be a little more clever because you couldn't just whack away with the sword like He-Man did. You'd have to turn it into something. That was the whole thing. Also, animal empathy was a big part of that show. Again, female animals, empathy, it's all the healing powers that she had, all that. She was a healer, and she wasn't a killer. She wasn't really want to kill anything. That's why we had a lot of robots for her to destroy. Because you have to have some action as well, And Hordak and his crew were like, they were kind of a step above Skeletor because they were heavy firepower. And that was really a hard, piteous place, the Horde's mucky swamp city there. And that started the whole thing. I'll make the longer story short.
Welcome to the what's this called? Filmation, a focus on She-Ra panel. To the left of me, I've got some of the greatest talent that Filmation ever saw, starting with Erica Scheimer.
Nothing like a little bit of nepotism.
Mr. Larry DiTilio. Tom Cito. last but not least, Francis Moss. Okay, so I'll start off. Obviously, this is the She-Ra panel. So I'll start with Larry DiTilio.
Hello.
Are you ready?
I am ready.
He's ready.
I am ready, yes.
Okay, so I'll start with something interesting because for years everyone thought Mattel were the sole kind of creators of She-Ra.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not true.
Well, no, they're not. They're not the sole creators of He-Man either.
No.